you thought you could get rid of him, but he is coming back to a stadium near you. And what has to happen for the Guardians to succeed in 2023? You are listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Goodbye to a legend. We're going to have a moment of silence for the one, the only, Mr. Baseball himself, Bryan Shaw. If you are listening, not watching, I did pull up his picture. I am Jeff. That's Justin. And we would love to have Bryan Shaw on the show. We tease now. I don't know why my voice cracked there when I'm almost 40. We tease now.
Really excited.
Because Shaw he wasn't good the last year and a half. But I still will say in the last 20 years, he's one of their top 5 relievers. He's one of the greatest relievers in the history of this franchise. You and I were both one of the many things we agreed on over the years where I know we felt like the minority was the defensive Shaw. And Bryan Shaw was a fantastic reliever. So as much as we tease and as much as I've become anti-Shaw just in this recent run, his first run, legitimate, great player for the Cleveland Indians at the time. So yeah, I just, as much as we tease now, I just want to give him his props and also say White Sox are trying to add every former potentially washed up Guardian right now. Is that the way of it? I mean, I'm not necessarily understanding the White Sox approach with this. He hasn't been good in he had about 3 good months in the last 4 years. And hey, I guess you sometimes need depth. You need depth or a rubber arm. But Bryan Shaw on a minor league contract to the Chicago White Sox. I believe I looked over at FanDuel. I think they actually dropped the White Sox win total after that signing to 78 projected wins from like 82 or 83. It was a pretty big hit. But hey, at least they didn't give him nearly $4 million. So can't tease that much.
What do you think Tito's reaction was when he knew that Bryan Shaw was signed with the White Sox? Do you think he had a moment of panic and disgust, like he was betrayed, or he's like trying to get him to undo it and trying to go see what he can do to get him? I mean, because the White Sox training facility isn't that far from Cleveland. It would have been funnier if he signed with Cincinnati, because if he signs with the Reds, he's the same complex. You can at least get him to just come over to the other side of the complex. What do you think Tito's response was when he found out the news?
Quiet weeping.
Quiet weeping.
Quiet weeping.
You don't think he threw his? You don't think he took his cribbage cards and just threw them all over? Like, okay, I'm done. I'm getting up from the table. No more cards.
No, I think he just touched them and cried and wept into the cards. Because I felt like he was the whole reason that he got that obscene amount of money for that he got a year ago. He was the 3rd or 4th highest paid Guardian last year. He was a top 5 paid player on that team.
Or do you think Bryan Shaw is pulling a Hercules mulligan and trying to help the Guardians from the inside? If anybody has seen Hamilton, that's a reference. You're not, yeah.
I mean, he's going to do that. It just may not be intentional. You might be an accidental Hercules mulligan. But again, I do want to reiterate, I put him on the all-time Guardians bullpen last year when I went through. You can go through and listen to last year's episode from this time. I'll just throw it out there where I debate who's the greatest second baseman in team history, who's the greatest shortstop, who's the greatest. And I put him because relief pitchers have only really been around since you do have those 1 or 2 guys in the 70s and 80s. A lot of them often turned to starter. The relief role is kind of more of or I should say 60s, 70s. It's more of an 80s thing. And then you just don't want to make it all closers. And again, the closers necessarily aren't great. So I made him I listed him as one of the greatest relievers in this team's history. Unfortunately, Father Time catches up with everyone, and it caught up with him a few years ago. So yeah, it's going to be, if he pitches for the White Sox, it's good for Guardians fans.
Could be. Yeah. I'm not disparaging Bryan Shaw. He had a good run here and was still important to this team the last 2 seasons, helping some of the relievers develop in the veteran role. So just have a little bit of fun.
Trevor Stephan gave him credit for helping to develop the splitter right last year, which became a big weapon. So, I was just kind of hoping he got a contract, so I understand why he didn't give up the ghost. But I was just expecting. I think he's got a bright future as a coach. So I was just kind of expecting that news.
Jeff, for the first time this week, we are opening the show without injury news.
Are we sure? There's not like
I don't have a clapping sounder. I'm gonna see. I don't know if we have a clapping sounder in our. I don't have that in our bed of tricks here. So there's your clap, but no new injuries for now. There was no injury update today from Goodyear, so that's the first time this week. That's a good sign. I kept saying yesterday that no news would be good news, so I'm glad about that.
I should have come up after the Hercules Mulligan reference and pulled like one of the other friends from that song and been like, but you didn't hear about, I think, there we go. John Lawrence. There we go. John Lawrence. I heard it's a lat injury and that he's going to miss the start of the year. Or maybe it's bursitis. He's got bursitis, suffering from a bad case of TMJ and is just not going to be able to start the year with the team. No, it's the first day without injuries. It's nice to not have to say which player on team injury is gone down today.
Down, yeah.
Like when I saw Joey
Cantillo
when I saw Joey Cantillo pop into my Twitter this evening, I was like, oh, a lot of and I was like, oh no, it's just an interview. Thank goodness.
Keep him in bubble wrap. Yeah. On that note, though, we had talked yesterday about, we've been talking all week about Espino and Morris and their role and the injuries they've suffered this week. And I put out a tweet today because we talked about it briefly on the air. There's really no evidence out there that suggests that if you take an injured pitcher, a starter who is injured often, and put him in the bullpen, that he automatically stays healthy. Like, you just can't. There's no science. There's no study on that show. I mean, if there is, point me to it. Maybe someone should do it. I know Travis Sawchik from The Score was going back and forth with me on Twitter today. And I really just put it out there, asking people if they had anything that came to mind, because I couldn't think of any. Or maybe, Saris from The Athletic can do it. I don't know. But I have not seen a study or any kind of proof that if you take an injured starter, if he becomes all of a sudden healthy in the bullpen, because I see like different scouting reports from reputable outlets and obviously just fan speculation too, saying, oh, well, I guess they're going to put him in the bullpen now, or they're going to have to shift him to the bullpen because he can't stay healthy. There is no evidence out there that suggests that if you put a starter who is injured in the bullpen, that he is going to stay healthy. Now, there have been examples. I don't have the Twitter handles. I should have the people ready. Maybe I'll get this ready for later, but there were a couple people that responded with examples of Kerry Wood, which is a good example. He was injured a lot as a starter, became a fairly solid reliever for a time. Andrew Miller was one of them. Andrew Miller was a mix of injuries as a starter, but he was also very ineffective, couldn't throw strikes, didn't really have a good third pitch, but I'll give you that one. That's both. Also, ironically, both former Indians. I'm not sure what that means. And then the third one, I'm trying to blank. I was talking to you. Who was the third one we were talking about?
I mean,
I'm trying to blank on the name.
I mentioned Gagne before.
You mentioned Gagne. Oh, Michael Fulmer. Michael Fulmer is. Yeah, he was not healthy as a starter, and he has been a health reliever and a good one. So, and you mentioned Eric Gagne, so there was a little bit of both ineffectiveness and injury there. But, those are the ones that stick out. And if you're listening and you have one that sticks out besides those, like some people are trying to say Jose Mesa. Mesa was a crappy starter. He wasn't injured. Trying to think other guys. Someone tried to say like Danny Salazar, but Danny Salazar was never a reliever either. So I don't know. So, and someone said also, I think AJ Puck, and there was a couple other guys that haven't. Robert Stevenson, Dylan Tate, and those guys haven't been around enough to really say otherwise. So, but there's just not a lot of proof out there for it. So I think that suggests that you can't just write starters off and they get injured and put them in the bullpen. You can't just say, well, he's going to the bullpen because he can't stay healthy, because there's no proof of that. So it makes no sense to give up on Daniel Espino or Cody Morris as a starter, because you can't guarantee they're going to have that role. You just see what happens and go with it, because a lot of bullpen guys are max effort guys, and a lot of guys are, it's hard to pitch on back-to-back days. It's just a different level of stress. So it really depends. It's really up to them to figure out ways to stay healthy. We've already talked about Daniel Espino's body routine, how he takes care of himself. So there's no guarantee there. But Travis Sawchik from the Score also brought up another good point, saying that Tristan McKenzie did not have a lot of healthy seasons in the minors. He only eclipsed 100 innings in the minors one time, and he threw 191 innings last year. So they didn't give up on him and put him in the bullpen. So that's at least one example.
The counterpoint to that is like he had, a lot of that was, I don't know how much was health in the early going and how much was just them being very careful with arm. Like it wasn't until that back injury when he got to AA and he came back and had the inconsistent velocity. And then he had, essentially like 2018 and 2019, where he had those 2 years. And I think a good point with all of this, to give credit to you again, is this idea that like it's less innings, so we assume less stress, but you're putting their body actually in a more stressful role by not giving days off. So I do think it is a situation that it bears watching. It's going to be interesting to see, because I think it's a good point. I've been guilty of it. I'm not going to lie. I've been guilty of saying, well, hey, put them in the pen. We'll see if they can hold up. But I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse.
I think the underlying point is, if you have a guy who is talented enough to be a starter like Espino, and if everybody's healthy, Espino, Morris, Cantillo, all those guys are starters. They can be starters. They can turn over a lineup. They can be guys in the middle of your rotation, at the top of your rotation. There's no reason to give up on them starting unless you absolutely have to. The only thing I could see in Cody Morris's case is his age. He's 26. Mm-hmm. So, I'm trying to think. Corey Kluber, what was his first year? He was like 20. He was like 26, 27.
Yeah.
When he finally broke out, I should say. So, there's that argument maybe, and you want to get him in, but you can always work him up to a starter's load. It's just a matter of him staying healthy, which, again, there's no role that guarantees it. So
he was his age 27 year was the first time he had over, had more than like 13 or more starts of the year.
So there's still time for Cody Morris. And it's not, with Carlos Vargas, I think they were moving him to a bullpen role because of option issues too. Yeah. Although he just lacked control in the third pitch too. So that was that. In a second here, I'd like to get into what if scenario. So what has to happen for the Guardians to succeed this year? What has to happen, or what could happen for them to not succeed? What is a successful season for them? What do they have to do to, get to the various levels of the playoffs and just have an overall successful season? So stay tuned for that coming up.
But first, we got to talk about our good friends over at FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here. It's also like the midway point of the NHL season. Let's put that both out there. Now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. I'm going to advise you to not bet on Bryan Shaw for the Cy Young or for the Reliever of the Year award. That's my advice today. Do not bet on Bryan Shaw. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. You saying all of that, I'll throw this as a tease for later in the week. I definitely want to discuss some of Saris's stuff. That's what I forgot to mention in our pre-show. Maybe for tomorrow. There's some interesting old friend alerts that pop up in some of his breakout pieces. And then there's also a personal favorite of mine. So I think we should table that and keep that as a preview for maybe tomorrow. I have you with no sound. You're muted, Justin.
Oh, that was my fault. I said just stay tuned for tomorrow. I didn't say anything important, so It's okay. But I'm here. My sound still works. I was just being an idiot. After all this time, I still have issues with that. All right, so let's start out pretty basic here, Jeff. What has to happen for the Guardians to make the playoffs? I mean, we don't have to go, super in detail here, but just what kind of things have to happen for the Guardians? What kind of things have to happen around the Guardians for them just to make the playoffs?
To me, the big ones are no massive regressions. I think we expect some degree. Like, we love Andres, but there's a good chance that there'll be some regression there. Like Oscar Gonzalez has a chance for some regression. But small regression is fine. Big regression, an Oscar Mercado level regression, we're in trouble. Like, if Oscar Gonzalez goes the way of the Oscar and does that, then that's. I mean, there is Will Brennan to step up, but big regression. Having more injury woes. Like last year, yes, they didn't have a ton of games missed, but they essentially lost like 2 to 3 wins with Jose Ramirez's injury. But other than him and Savale, and I mean, Plesac was short term and it wasn't a huge hit because he wasn't performing, but they were really healthy. They didn't have a lot of outstanding injuries. So I think it's health. It's no big regressions. That hopefully by midseason, Tony La Russa will be coaching the White Sox again. That's the. I mean, we lost the White Sox. The White Sox are going to improve by 5 games just by losing him as their manager. So I mean, I think that's one of the more underrated aspects of this offseason. No, I think they have and I think the number 3 thing is that Zunino proves his worth. That him in particular is a very important signing. If Josh Bell disappoints and is closer to league average, it's not ideal, but like they can live with it. They can take that performance and it's fine. Even if he disappoints and is below league average and he's not worth play. Like, I don't see that happening. I don't see a world where that happens if they have the depth to handle that. Zunino has issues. They don't have that depth. And with Naylor starting in the World Baseball Classic, he's not even getting all the reps he would get as a rookie that you're hoping will be like a starter sooner than later. So if I'm going to single out one guy, it's Zunino.
All right. So Zunino has to step up and command. I think that's a pretty spot on thing there. I mean, we talked about yesterday breaking into catchers and how difficult that is. I would agree with that. Just to make the playoffs, I think in general, you have to have health. I'm not so worried about the pitching side of things. I think Cleveland has enough pitching to buoy itself, even if they have to turn to some of the younger starters and be aggressive with that. I know it's risky to count on younger starters, but we have the talent if they need to do it, and the bullpen should be good too to help them out there. So I think that's pretty good. Pitching just needs to stay the same, even though if you're going with Cal Quantrill and Plesac and Savali, if you can work other guys in, and I'm sure someone will get hurt at some point, but I feel good about that. Yeah, Zunino's definitely got to come back healthy. I think that's a big thing for them. They can't afford to risk it on defense. This team won the division a year ago with absolutely zero offense out of the catcher position. They've proven they can do it. It's not ideal to have 2 dead spots in your lineup. So I think a return to slightly below league average offense for Miles Straw, it has to happen, because you cannot have your 8 and 9 spots in the lineup dead again, especially because you think that maybe, like you said, Andres Gimenez could be due for some regression, and who knows with Stephen Kwan as well. You've got a lot of young players. So these guys, I'm not saying all of them have to continue on their progression, and we know that development isn't linear. These guys develop on their own time. So it's possible to have 1 or 2 of or maybe even 3 of these guys regress and maybe a couple more take a step forward. So just got to make sure you have enough going on to balance out the regression side of things. And I think they can do that. Anything different have to happen, Jeff, for the Guardians to win the division, or pretty much what you said? Because we just said playoffs. Anything different than what you said already to win the division? No, and if they don't win the division, do you like their chances of having a shot at the wild card? Because obviously that wouldn't have been the case last year. I think they would have tied for the second wild card last year.
No, I think it's the same for the division, because I think the wild card is probably going to be just as tough, if not tougher, this year. And I think that it's the easiest route to the playoffs is still by winning this division, because you got 2 teams that aren't trying, one very flawed team with some good talent, and then the Twins.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Jeff, what has to happen for the Guardians to earn a first-round bye in the playoffs?
That is what, top 2 teams, right? No,
that is the top 2 teams.
I think the best route to that actually doesn't have much to do with the Guardians. I think it's a lot of what we talked about, but that the East really beats themselves up. I think some of it is that essentially the Astros are probably going to walk away with their division because it's really a haves and haves not. I mean, until the Angels show they can actually do something, I'm not going to get suckered in. And I mean, what were there really there? I like a lot of their minor moves. They did a bunch of minor moves instead of big ones, but I still don't know if that's a playoff team. So, yeah, and it's not like they got prospects falling out their ears that they can pull up and move in. So Houston's gonna have a pretty, Seattle's good. Don't get me wrong, but Houston is the team to beat there, and the bottom of that division is bad. The other side of it, you're kind of just counting on the East to really beat each other up, make that a contest. Tampa's going to be tougher this year with Glass Snow back after him missing last year. I think it's more about the opponents than the Guardians themselves.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's going to be, look, the balanced division is going to be, the balanced schedule is going to factor in here. You're going to have to play better against other teams. You can't count on going 15-4 against the Tigers and the Royals or whatever. I know they didn't do that last year, but I mean, you can't count on beating those teams up. So it's going to matter how they play against the other sides of the division or the other divisions, as it were, and playing against the National League as well. So I think that's going to have a big factor. And like you said, other teams, it's going to be attrition for them as well to get a first round bye. I don't anticipate it, but you never know. Things could get weird. All right, let's continue up the ladder. Jeff, what has to happen for the Guardians to get to the ALCS? One round further than they got a year ago.
So I think Jose has to fully come back to that MVP form. I think you need him in the middle of that lineup. I think Josh Bell needs to be the Josh Bell he was for the Nationals, not the Josh Bell he was for the Padres. I think then you have two legit, bats in the middle of that lineup. You have to see very minor, if no regression at all. Miles Straw needs to rebound kind of more of his 2021, less of his 2022 form. And I think that if you get all of those, based on what we saw last year, to me, that's enough to get you there. The next step will have more, but for me, it's more, the two pitchers at the top I believe in, and the bullpen is going to be a huge asset in the postseason. So it was just, they came a little bit short offensively. So if you get MVP Jose, you get Josh Bell at the all-star level, Josh Bell, and you get Miles Straw at a hair below average without anyone else regressing, then I think that team is an ALCS team.
Yeah, I think they can get back to the ALCS as is. I think that's a bold statement, I guess, because there's still improvements they can make for sure. But I think also we have to be concerned, like you said, about regression. Regression is the biggest thing here, assuming they're just going to be as good as they were a year ago or a little bit better if everybody takes a step forward. So, but I think they can get back to the ALCS as currently built. Like you said, they got there. Or they didn't get to the ALCS. They got to the ALDS. I'm sorry. So I think what they need, what they need to do to get to the ALCS, I think they need another starter. That's what I'm going to say. I think they need another starting pitcher, whether that comes from a prospect internally who is better than Plesac and Savali. I don't want to disparage them in any way, but I think you need somebody else in that rotation. I preferably someone who pushes Quantrill to your fourth best starter in that rotation, but if not, someone who can go behind him that's got a better chance. Because I think right now, when you look at the other rotations in the American League, I think you may need one more starter. So that's my thing. Is I think offensively, could they use a little more help? Yes, but I think they need to find out who is their third or fourth starting pitcher by then to have them ready for the ALCS. I would ask you what has to happen to get to the World Series, but I think we know once you get to that point, a lot of it's just random variance and luck, right? So,
yeah, I mean, this is where
really any reason to go.
I do, because I think the separator here of getting past like the Astros, who do seem to be the class of it, is kind of what you talked about. I think having a Bybee, having a Williams step in, like having that better, like I think they can get to the ALCS with Quantrill as a 3, Savale as a 4. I think they can do that because they almost did this past year. And that Yankees team, one can argue if they're going to be worse than a year ago with Cortez already having arm issues. Rondon has been healthy, but he wasn't for a long time before that. So again, health, you can't bet on it sometimes. It's interesting to watch. And Montes wasn't really a factor. But Yeah, I think to get to that World Series, if you're going to get past a team like the Astros who have pitching depth, if you're going to get past the Yankees, that's the one that's going to be the separator to get in that postseason, is what you talked about in the last one.
Yeah, ALCS and the World Series for sure, I think is probably both those kind of things. Okay, then World Series. Do you think what has to happen for the Guardians to finally win the World Series? I would say you need Josh Bell to find his, I'm going to say 2021 season. I don't think he needs to have his 2019 season where he hit 37 home runs, but I think he needs to get back to his 2021 self where he hits 27 homers, has a 119 WRC plus. You need a Jose Ramirez MVP season. You need someone like Oscar Gonzalez or Josh Bell and maybe another young guy to step up. And I think you still need that additional starting pitcher. And you need to hope that you don't need to add a bullpen piece.
I think you need a live animal sacrifice, a chicken.
Don't do that, Jeff. Not the current one.
No,
don't do it.
Don't. That's a major league reference before anyone thinks I mean that. But I held a freeze over. It feels like that sometimes to win. To win, you need these young players we've been talking about forever to be a part of this team and step up. I think that's it's Williams, even Espino. Like I said, I think there's a good chance he pitches this year, and I think he would be ready by the end of the year. And his stuff is dynamic. I think you and I would probably both agree. If you want to just talk about like best pure like pitch mix stuff, hardest to hit, can miss the most bats. Even in the majors, I think he would be a top 5 guy. Just like, for a 1 inning thing, like Class A is probably the number 1 guy they have in that way. And that's because I think he's Class A has a chance to be a Hall of Famer, like with his stuff. I know that's not what I'm supposed to say this early on, but like I think it's legitimate. And I think, we should be excited for Class A. And he probably doesn't get enough chatter because he's a reliever, but he's really that Corey Kluber deal. My goodness. But Espino outside of him, the Corey Kluber might be the Bartolo Colon, which is funny when you look at like the trading the aces. Even Sabathia gave you Brantley and Lee gave you Carrasco, so they've done really well with that through the Clevenger's return. But yeah, I think those young players like Espino, Bybee, Williams, maybe it's Rocchio if Ahmed struggles. I think people forget because he was really good in the middle, but he struggled at the end, and he was terrible for the first month of the season. So it's like, essentially when Straw was good, he was bad, and then when he got good, Straw was bad. Like they almost completely switched. So it's, can those guys step up? Maybe Valera is able to contribute. I like Oscar Gonzalez. I think you give him every opportunity to play, but I don't think there's anyone out there saying that Gonzalez has the ceiling Valera has. Like, the ceiling is just so much higher. I think seeing those young guys getting another breakout performance like you got with Kwan from one of those young players is going to be the separator. On top of everything I've already said, the pitching improvement, the guys stepping up.
Yep. And as we wrap the segment up here, reasons they can miss the playoffs, I would say, we talked about regression. Definitely could happen for them. I'm not so worried about injuries. Obviously a Jose Ramirez injury would be devastating for them. Josh Bell, I think no matter what happens, is an upgrade over Owen Miller last year. You're essentially replacing Miller's at bats with Bell, so I'm not so worried about that. I think what really keeps this team out of the playoffs is Zunino defensively or Naylor defensively. If they lose anything defensively on the catcher spot, it's going to hurt them. I know Hedges wasn't fantastic throwing out runners last year, but it's going to be more important this year. So I think catcher defense, if that takes a major hit for them, it could be an issue because it's going to be a big issue this year. It's going to be something to watch this year. And I think just the Twins in general. I know people are going to say the White Sox, could win the division. They're good enough. They might. For me right now, it's the Twins. I think if the Twins play more like they did early in the season, they don't fall off at the end of the season, could keep Cleveland out of the playoffs. I think it's more of what other teams could do versus what could happen for Cleveland, because a number of things could happen to Cleveland. We talked about regression and how that's progression is not linear. Development's not linear. They could all take a step back, and that could impact things. And I think, like I said, I think you have enough people to offset that if certain guys do take a step back. But I would say reasons they can miss the playoffs, I think it has to do specifically with who else is in the division.
See, I think it's health. I'm going to disagree with you for once. I think it's,
well, that's implied. Health is always implied.
If it's closer to like the 2021 season where, listen, at some point we know Savali is going to get hurt and miss time. Like that's going to happen. Like how much time does he miss? Does Plesac do something dumb again? Just call a spade. He does dumb things. It's unfortunate, but he does dumb things. If Bieber misses significant time, like if that happens, or Tristan McKenzie, who we talked about, his health has been pretty healthy. If he has an injury, like all that stuff, to me, it's the starting pitching. Because a year ago, everyone was telling me how when I was like, I wouldn't trade a starter because we don't have like proven depth, and people are like, oh, we have all of these guys, and the list of players they told me who could step into that starter role, a lot of them are no longer even with the team. So starter depth is always hard. You don't have it until you're proven to have it. As much as I love the young arms and system and think many can be great players, I do think until it is proven, you don't really have pitching depth.
Yep, that's why people say there is no such thing as a pitching prospect sometimes as well. We're going to talk about pitching prospects and how they are being ranked coming up in just a second as we close out today's audio portion of Locked On Guardians. All right, FanGraphs. I shouldn't, there are more top. This isn't just FanGraphs specific, but there are more top 100 prospect lists coming out. There are people updating top 100 prospect list, and the injury to Espino has caused some fallout in terms of his ranking in those. So he took a tumble in one top 100 prospect list. He took a tumble in both, really, because early on it seemed like he was going to be the best in one of them. And so at least two prospect lists that are out, he took a big tumble. Not really surprised, but you mentioned to me before we started today that we kind of baked that into our rankings internally, not a top 100, but internally is the reason you and I both agree that we went with Bybee and Williams and Espino, or at least Bybee number one, was we banked in that injury risk as well. So it's just interesting to see, like,
oh, am
I on list wise. I don't know where this Espino's. Yeah, it's me for once. I'm having the internet issues for a change. But it's interesting to see. Yeah, it's interesting to see where other people were banking on Espino coming back to full health this year, and now he has fallen off on some of the lists.
I just think, like I said, you and I 100% baked it in. Like I said, we talked about beforehand. I understand dropping him to some degree because but like at the same time, he just hasn't. What has changed? He's still kind of the same guy he was before this information. There's still the same injury woes and concerns. I think, like I said, we put him where we put him because we knew neither of us felt 100% comfortable with it. So I get it from one degree, but I also want to take a moment and give us credit for being like, no, we decided that was something you have to consider. And I think it's something you do have to consider.
Yeah. I got a message from a friend today on Twitter talking about the pickoff rule too, and this was an interesting way to bring it up. And he said, have the catchers and the man and the dugout handle the pickoff rule. Don't let the pitchers determine when they're throwing over. Have them look over, but have the catcher make the call on the pitch comm when to throw over. Let the dugout also dictate that as well. Let them pick up on players, runners leading off, and let them pick up on the tendencies there and let them make that call versus letting it take over a pitcher's head about when he only having two times to throw over and he has to get it out in the second try and just holding the runner in general. Let the catcher and the dugout take care of that because they'll be able to see it from a better angle than the pitcher and can maybe focus on that more, and you free up the pitcher a little bit from that. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with that. I think in some ways, maybe the best way to just head it off, in addition to all of that, is like, hey, don't throw over him unless we tell you. So, like, because, I mean, how easy is it going to be to forget? like that you can't do it anymore. I mean, we all
Right.
go in, we all have those moments where we're used to doing something a certain way. I mean, how many times have you autopiloted on your drive home and not even thought about it? I think, and I'm sure people are like, oh, you can't do that in a baseball game. I'm sure at some points you kind of do semi-autopiloting. I think in some respects, you might do it best when you're on autopiloting. You're not thinking about it. You're not overthinking. You see it, you pitch, you react. You're just in a reaction mode. I could see being very beneficial. So drilling into these guys and being like, listen, we'll alert you when to throw over might also prevent essentially the free base, right? That's what you're going to give guys. So I think it's just smarter to do it that way, to whether or not it'll be easier, but just from more the perspective of helping take that off a pitcher's mind. Like, okay, because like I said, I think it's me. I think early on you'll see a lot of free bases from guys just like, I forgot. Like, how think about when Manny Ramirez couldn't count outs, and now imagine someone like him as a pitcher, and just how many times he would throw over without thinking.
Yeah. All right. As we wrap up today's show, so we got a good response yesterday from everybody who we asked about a Locked On Guardians fantasy baseball league. So right now, between Jeff and I, and then 6 others, it seems like we have a couple people who are interested, and they say they have friends who are interested. We are up to 8 people. So 8's good. If we have to do it with 8, we can do it with 8. It's, more is always fun. But I think 8 is more than enough to run the league. So we can do it with that. But if you are interested, let us know either, on Twitter or on YouTube comments, any other way you can get a hold of us. We'll have to figure out something else there. I don't know. Then we can create community somewhere else as well if you're trying to get back to us if you don't use Twitter, which I know a lot of people don't. So if you're interested, we're not going to start it yet, but we're up to 8. There's no real limit. Maybe we'll go to as high as 12, but I'm okay at 8. But thanks for your responses on that. I think we'll at least have that, and let us know if you're interested. We'll do that. And then Friday, if you are going to be in Arizona for the start of spring training, this Friday, the 24th, is the Jim Poole golf outing. Remember, Jim Poole is dealing with ALS, unfortunately. Very disappointing and ugly disease. He will not be able to be in attendance, but they are going to try to have him, I don't know, remote in, or I'm not sure they're going to handle it. But it is $250 per golfer. It is in the Superstition Springs Golf Course in Mesa, Arizona. Registration at 9:30 in the morning. $250 a golfer, $1,000 for a foursome, $125 for the dinner only, and it's going to benefit the ALS Cure Project for Jim Poole. There's going to be a live auction, a happy hour, the tournament, a dinner, a silent auction, all that good stuff. So help out a former Indians player if you are going to be in Arizona for the start of spring training. Anything else before we get out of here, Jeff?
No, like I said, I just think some of the Innisera stuff will be fun for us to talk about tomorrow. So again, I'll just tease that for tomorrow's show. A player I've been two players that I'm very high on made his 10 young MLB bats to watch for breaking out. So right. I'm going to just say that now. So that's going to be fun to get into.
All right. Well, if you are listening on the audio portion, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you downloading, reviewing, subscribing, all that stuff. Definitely helps out. And we are glad to have you listen to us banter about the Guardians and baseball, even when we're having internet connectivity issues night after night, depending on which one of us is having the better night. We appreciate that. And if you are not watching on YouTube, head over there. We're going to talk about a couple extra things in the after show on YouTube. And if you are, stick around before we get to that. Go, Guardians, go. Jeff, I want to ask you real quick, just as fun one. Yes. All the people, we've come a long way in terms of cell phone pictures and videos and all that kind of stuff. Because do you remember in the early days of Twitter, you would get these grainy little blurry pictures of pitchers taking, fielding practice and throwing bullpens, and it's like, oh, it's everyone's favorite day. It's blurry picture day. We have come a long way in technology that I feel like all the reporters who are at spring training sites are getting great video now, and you're getting great pictures and audio and all this stuff that phones have improved. I don't want to say Twitter has improved because let's be honest, it hasn't. But
It hasn't.
yeah, it's going the other way, I think. But we've come a long way from the early days of blurry photos of spring training. But I don't know. One of the things that pops up to me, and talking about spring training and getting excited for the season, is hearing the pop of the catcher's glove and batting practice. Everyone loves to hear those sounds. What is your favorite baseball sound? Do you have a favorite baseball sound? One that just kind of brings you back, makes you feel like baseball's here, and puts you in a better mood. I mean, I hate winter, and the winter does depress me. So when I hear those sounds, I feel a little bit better about my day.
Part of me wanted to say something very snide and jokey, but the first thing that came to mind, because I couldn't think of a good joke, not necessarily snide. I was just trying to think of something funny. It didn't come to me. It's been a long day. I'm tired. A lot of snow and ice outside. But to me, it's that special crack of the bat, like when someone's gotten a hold of it. Like there is that sound when it hits the just right part of the bat. I don't know, that's the best one to me. You just there's a way you can hear it. Like you could not even be facing the field, and when you hear that specific crack, you're like, that's gonna be deep. That either that's a home run or it's gonna be a long out. Either way, it's gonna be something fun to watch.
Especially when it's like one of your favorite hitters or something, or someone you really like and enjoy watching hitting. I'm more preferential to the pop of the glove when a pitcher is throwing. I like pitching. I'm one of those nerds who likes. I would prefer to see a 2-1 game versus a 9-7 because I like pitching quite a bit. And I know that's not for everybody, and that's boring, but whatever. So I like the pop of the glove when a pitcher is throwing. But I will say, an underrated sound. I just crossed this the other day, and I don't know, made me think about this. I like the sound of cleats on like concrete, like you're hearing guys in their cleats just walking to the field or walking away from the field. I don't know. There's something about that sound just kind of reminds me of playing, or especially when I was playing in high school. I don't know. It reminds me of that. So I think that's an underrated sound in terms of baseball. Let us know what your favorite baseball sound is, especially one that gets you excited for spring training as games are happening on Friday.
I feel like Friday. Go ahead. I feel like some of the sounds I hear most though are like the background sounds from like Ken Griffey Jr. baseball, because that's still the only baseball game I played. I played a complete season in. I played all 162. I didn't sim any of them.
Wow.
So it's like, it's like, especially because that was I believe it was a Super Nintendo game. So there's like 4 things the background people would shout, and I probably that's the ones I might hear the most of is like someone shouting about peanuts being available. Haunts my dreams to this day.
I love that. All right. Yesterday we talked about the captain's promo schedule. We thought it was hilarious. Akron released theirs. You want to quick react to some of the Akron Rubber Ducks?
I have not seen these, so this will be my first time seeing them. So we'll get off the cuff reaction.
All right. Cool. All right. Let's start with April 7th. There's a Jambroni in my Cincinnati chili. Apparently the Cincinnati, I don't know the whole story behind this, but apparently the Cincinnati mayor said something stupid about chili and having to do with probably the Super Bowl or the Bengals. But we talked about this with Dan Zaborski on our Zips episode back in January. I do not like beans in my chili. I do not like Skyline chili. So this one's funny to me. I don't know. This is a very random one, but a very interesting one. What do you think?
It's random. I'm again going to say I do like beans. I don't need spaghetti.
You're wrong.
I like beans. Don't need spaghetti. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. But I remember seeing there was a whole big thing about the Cincinnati mayor, but I checked out on football this year, so I didn't.
I think if you're going to use the word Jambroni, you have to have the Rock there. So work on that, Akron. Forget the Rock there if you're going to do the Jambroni theme night,
or the Always Sunny guys who running gag with that.
May 4th. This is one that isn't really a reactionary one, but who doesn't love a good Star Wars night? Come on, this is the perfect.
And it's on Star Wars Day.
So. It is May the 4th. The Captains had this last year, and I was actually covering the game on May the 4th, and I did everything in my power to tweet about the game going on in Star Wars themed messages or Star Wars incorporated messages.
You're
so
just Yoda.
I don't think I'll be in Akron. Yeah. The Guardians game on May 4th. Maybe I'll get down to Akron that night and I'll do it again. We'll see. I love a good Star Wars night though in baseball. It's always a classic. Oh no, I can't get the screen freeze. That's good.
Nope. It's just amazing how I switch computers and everything's working. And for the first time in weeks, it's Justin's computer. I feel like something out there doesn't like us or wants us to have an issue. It's just mildly humorous at this point, right? Like where for once everything's running fine on my end.
Oh,
And
okay.
there we go. Now Justin is back. I was just saying how it's funny that everything's running clean on my end. And of course, you're having issues because we can't have a clean show.
There we go. We're
we can't
good.
have nice
May 5th. Yeah, I couldn't get my screen to change from the next promo. Dungeons and Ducks instead of Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeons and Ducks. That's the next night.
Those could be
Same
some
with the nerd
fun video screen things they do. I'll be curious to see like the interstitials that they do on the board. It could be really well done with that.
Yeah. The next night they have Goat Night. Recognize the greatest of all time on May 31st. I expect to see a lot of Jose Ramirez jerseys. Just saying.
Yeah, I also wonder if they'll do something humorous with that, like if they'll like name someone the goat of something and have some random person there.
Saturday, July 8th. Can I speak to your manager? They're going to give a Rugos Odor bobblehead away. That seems fun. I like Rugos Odor. Be a fun good bobblehead, but I love that.
He might be the most off the cuff manager I've ever interviewed in my entire life.
I would put Dave Wallace up there with that one, but yeah, I think you're right. He's second. Or if you remember Edwin, what was Edwin's last name? You remember what I'm talking about? He was in the system for a little bit. I can't think of his last name. He was very honest as well and very
Well, I mean, like Wally was always honest, but he was always like he always thought about it and had like sometimes I don't know what's coming from Rudy when I was down there. Like you'd be like, oh, well, that's an interest, like not in a bad way, never in a bad way, but like he's fun.
July 22nd, Akron has he's not the greatest color man in the league for nothing, folks. They are going to give away a Monty the Color Man bobblehead that night. I think that's fun. Although I don't know if they were doing in solidarity with the captains. The captains, we talked about yesterday doing the random jersey night with Zach Meisel of the Athletic and Selvius Godcast. They misspelled Zach. They also misspelled Monty. They spelled it Monty. And I saw Monty the Color Man on Twitter talking about it, how disappointed he was they got it wrong. It's Monte. But that's a cool bobblehead. You don't have that's a off the cuff one that's unique. Is he going to be there? I don't know. He probably might be. I've seen him.
Skip Gurparis is apparently the actor. I did not know that.
I don't know if he'll be there.
Yes. Well, and it looks like he was a singer-songwriter guitarist for some Chicago bands before, and a comedian. But yeah, his only movies are the 2 Major League films. It's been interesting.
That's great.
That's literally all he did.
That's amazing.
So that's interesting. And then, I wonder. I mean, I met the real Monty, not real. I met the Twitter Monty once. Who knows if he'll be there? But he doesn't. He won't. You won't know if he's there because he also doesn't want to be known because of the day job.
Yeah, that's fair. June 3rd is the All Out 90s. They are going to do trends, outfits, and all that good stuff from the 90s. I love a good 90s night. I love 90s. So that was a fun one. I'd be interested in going to that, but I have plans that night, and it's a week before my wedding, so I will be a little bit busy.
Yeah, it's just, it's not that important. Just tell your wife today that you're going to take it off. I'm sure she'll take it well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't really do anything for the wedding for this weekend. I have to go to the 90s night at the Rubber Ducks game. The last one, they have a lot of good ones this year. The last one I noted, though, is June 20th. This kind of goes along with the 90s. So it's part of like 97. They do this like once a year, party like the 90s, and they wear the Akron Arrows uniforms. I love that. I still like the Akron Arrows. So they'll be the Akron Arrows for one more night. They've got a bunch of different nights this year, actually. They have they're going to be the sauerkraut balls. They're going to be the devil strips. They're going to be a couple other names they could have been.
The devil strips. I thought the sauerkraut balls one would sell super well, but now I kind of want to see what growing up in Ohio, like a lot of devil strip is one of those terms. A lot of places have no idea what that is if I say that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that
Comment below. Let us know if you know what a devil strip is. If you don't live in Ohio, you may not know what it is. So comment below. Let us know if you think you know what it is, or if you do know what it is, or you can guess if you don't.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing that one. I think there's gonna be a lot of
here.
It's always fun to see these. I think it's smart. I mean, you need it with minor league baseball. You need to have the things that bring people in, and they're doing a great job there.
They are. All right, I've seen this discussed a couple places. Everybody else is getting jersey patches, sponsors. It is coming to baseball. I know that people are going to be like, "Oh, I hate this. Baseball selling out." Blah blah blah. I don't know. Jeff? Who do you want the Guardians? I'm not even sure if they're working on it yet. I'm sure they will be at some point. It's inevitable. Who would you like to be the Guardians sponsor on the jersey patch? Like, do you have anybody in mind who would be perfect for it?
I do want to say one thing. A few years ago, before I get into this, I just tweeted out, listen, if I could guarantee Jose Ramirez stayed in Cleveland, would you rather? Who cares what the mascot is? Let's make them the Cleveland Pepsis if it allows us to keep our players. I've always been, and I did a whole Twitter thing and had a few hundred people respond, and 70% of people were okay with the idea of changing the name from the Indians to the Cleveland Pepsis if it meant more money with the team. So I just thought that was kind of a fun random thing to throw out now. I don't know, I would say let's go with some of the fun food at the stadium, some of the places. Not living in Cleveland, while I've gone and eaten, many of those things, all I can think isn't Grandma Moses is that the ice cream? Is that something, or am I
Sweet Moses? They unfortunately went out of business last year. Very depressing. Way to go.
So I'm here for, but I'm trying to. I think it'd be great if it was local business, somehow supporting, a smaller business. I think about the food because they've got the food there. But it's that comes to mind, or I don't know, being someone who's born and raised in Akron and was part of the the Goodyear Explorer Scouts as a high school kid. I wouldn't be opposed to Goodyear as well as just being Akron. I think I'm at least 1% rubber in my body or something from all the factory.
Everybody is.
Yeah, just that's part of a fun fact.
Well, I would go with Progressive on the patch. Let's be honest. I did every year. I've always asked people this too. When you go to the stadium, how many places can you see a Progressive ad in Progressive Field? And it was I don't know, it was over 12 or something. It was a lot. So I'm like, why not just do Progressive one more time? Put them on the patch. They're already everywhere as this. So what's the point? Just add another one. I don't know. Sherwin-Williams, I've seen mentioned some places that'd be interesting. They're staying downtown. KeyBank has been a major sponsor.
We've missed it until Guardians 3 comes out this summer. So Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy 3 patch should be the thing for the year. Let's just roll all in.
A big shoulder patch of Chris Pratt's face for the year on there.
I mean, I'd rather have Zoe Saldana myself, but I guess to each their own.
Yeah, that one's over my head. I don't know. This is going to be a very unpopular opinion. I have not seen a single Marvel movie, not one. That's going to be unpopular.
I'm one of those people. I'm a big mark for the Guardians. That might be my favorite one in the whole series too. So I'm just gonna and if you've ever seen the commercial, she's the one in the green makeup, but has been in many things. Zoe Saldana. There's no way you've missed her in other stuff.
How about Tim Misney? Can we just? You haven't been in Cleveland in a while, so.
Oh no, I know who he is. I know you know who he is.
But he's got these new billboards in Cleveland where it's just a picture of him and his eyebrow. It's literally his forehead to his chin, and it's just to him doing the eyebrow thing like he does. Just put that patch on the shoulder. Just do that. Nobody outside of Cleveland will get it, but that's not the point. So that's my favorite one. Patch on.
Yeah, it would be. I wouldn't get it probably since I hadn't seen the new ones, but
I love the Tim patch. I would go with that. That's about really all I have. I said KeyBank is a major sponsor.
Or I know they're not sponsors, but it'd be fun to I've always said the thing that people outside of Cleveland don't understand about Cleveland is it's actually a fantastic city for the arts. Between the art museum and after Cleveland has museums that bigger cities don't have. So if there was something like from just Cleveland's own, internal board that was promotion of what is really an amazing cultural thing they have there, the natural history and the art museum and everything else. I mean, Columbus doesn't have a natural history museum, having lived there for years. It's kind of amazing just how good the museums and the culture class in Cleveland is. I know people are probably going to call me a snob or something for this, but museums are cool. I'm sorry. And there's an amazing one in Cleveland, and it should be appreciated.
I think one everybody would like would be for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to sponsor the Guardians and just put another guitar on there. I think everybody would go for that. People love the guitar. No, people hate the guitar. So don't do that.
No, make it that stamp, that giant stamp.
The free stamp, yeah.
The free stamp.
Yeah.
How we
got a Locked On Guardians patch on there? Who do we call? How much money is it going to take for us to get Locked On Guardians?
We will offer them our YouTube revenue for a month. How about that? For 1 month. What's that about, Cat?
That'll stock their pop cooler. Their soda machine for a month.
My cat, I don't know if you saw that, just smacked me in the face because apparently she did not like the joke about giving away. Yeah. She's like, no, that's my wet food money. You're not giving it. But yeah, no, we can, we could give them a month of YouTube revenue. Now, depending on the month, there is actually no revenue sometimes. So,
we need more subscribers, more watchers.
Yeah, totally. No,
share this with a friend if you're watching.
We appreciate everyone out there. We're having some fun with it. I think patches. You know what? I don't know. They're not going to distract me. We've already got the full Major League 2 with all the billboards and signs out there. It was just a matter of time. I mean, heck, Mo Vaughn's got his name in the stadium.
That's not there anymore.
He did. So it's we've seen weirder things than a patch on it. So anything that's going to help potentially keep talent in Cleveland.
Yeah, the YouTube revenue could stock their soda machine for a month. That's another.
I don't even know if it could. With all their staff.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you want there hasn't been any report on it, speaking of uniforms. There hasn't really been anything out there, but I think everyone's having a City Connect uniform. They had to wait until they did the new Guardians uniforms and they changed. Do you want them to have a City Connect uniform? I'm sure it's inevitable, but I hope it's this year. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know what it's going to look like whenever they do it, but I hope they get one. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always curious to see them. See how it turns out. I mean, I'm a sucker for it. I typically read any article that has weird or random jerseys, when they do Marvel jerseys for every team or Star Wars jerseys. I know City Connect is something different than that. This is an actual jersey thing, but it'd be fun to see and look at.
And real quick, we're just about out of time here for today, but cool story that, well, I don't know if it's cool, but it's certainly interesting. So I know you like Noah Song a lot back when he was a pitcher at the Navy, but he has been, I don't want to say discharged from the Navy, but he has been granted a waiver where he is going to continue to serve in the reserve. So the story is, if you're not familiar with Noah Song, is he went to the Navy, didn't really have any other scholarship offers to pitch. And while he was there, he became a legitimate draft prospect. He was really good. Had a great bunch of great numbers and performances at Navy. And he ended up dropping to the 4th round in the draft. I think that was 2019, 2018.
Seems about right. Yeah, I mean, I thought he'd be a late first round talent because it's guys have been getting out of their commitments for years in football and baseball before this. So it's a really unusual thing. He's the first guy that I can recall in a very long time. I mean, wasn't Griffin Jax was another Navy pitcher, was he not? And he got out of it.
I don't remember, yeah.
But it's for some reason, the most talented guy to go through the Navy program in forever, they made an example of.
It's wild. So he got let out a little bit. So he is going to be in the reserves, I think. And then he is going to be allowed to pitch this year. And the Phillies took him in the Rule 5 draft over the winter because the Red Sox, who initially drafted him in the 4th round, didn't protect him, thinking A, he wasn't going to get out of his service, and B, even if he did, who's going to take this guy? Because he's got all of 30 major or pro innings. And that was back in 2019 in short season ball, RIP to short season ball. Maybe it was low A, I can't remember. But either way, they probably didn't think anybody was going to take him, and the Phillies did. I think Dave Dombrowski might have been the Red
he
Sox
drafted
GM
him
when he got drafted. So that's why he took him. Maybe
he knows him, and it certainly feels like they knew something, right? Like
they must have, yeah.
They must have had some kind of inside info that they knew this was going to happen. Yeah, he hasn't pitched since 2019 in the New York Penn League, which was low
RIP.
So
yeah, so I'm curious to watch how that develops this year. He was a good pitcher, and
he's probably going to be. I don't know. Like he's probably going to be a reliever, just because again we talked about this with like Cody Morris. He's 25. He's going to turn 26 in May.
He hasn't pitched in 3 years.
I know.
Who knows?
But that's the thing.
Going to look like.
You have to get him ramped up and going, and he's already 26. So trying to get him to convert to a starter seems unlikely. But he's got this stuff. I mean, to be a pretty good reliever, and it's a nice pickup for the Phillies. And I saw some people being like, "Oh, they can't listen." It is really easy, especially with like a bullpen guy, and with 8-man bullpens now, you can make him your long guy for a year, have some up and downs with it, and it's really easy to pass him through. They'll keep him.
Yeah, I would say the odds of him sticking are low, but they're not zero. This is a very unique case. I think it's easy to keep Rule 5 guys if you do it right in these cases, but also this is a very unique case, which is why I think it's interesting to talk about and something I'm going to be following a lot in spring training. But people don't realize you can stretch this out over 2 years. Like Anthony Santander, I know that's a sore spot for you and a lot of people, but the Orioles stretched that situation out over 2 years because you have to be on the active roster for 90 days. If you IL a guy and he is rehabbing, whatever, you get 30 days of rehab for pitchers, all that kind of stuff. He can rehab while he's on the injured list. You can stretch that out, and that's what the Orioles did with Santander. The second year, he had to be on the active roster for an X amount of days because he was hurt the year before, or quote unquote hurt, whatever they did. No reason the Phillies can't do that, where they can't IL him for, let's say he comes back into spring training pitching for the first time and he hurts himself because he hasn't thrown in 3 years or whatever. Boom, you send him out down to Florida at where the Red Sox train. He rehabs his injury and is working on whatever, and then he comes back and he gets to go on a 30-day rehab stint once he's finally activated. You hide him in the bullpen for a little bit as a long man, and if he doesn't get his 90 days this year, you stretch it out to next year. So it's not that hard to game the system. And I saw some speculation too, saying that, well, if the Phillies, who are a contender, can't hide him because that could be more difficult than being a contender, there's no reason they can't work out a trade with Oakland or Pittsburgh or somebody else who is not a contender, and they could trade him there and let him get innings that way. But yeah, so the odds, I mean, I would say the odds are not great for him sticking in Philadelphia, or he might have better odds somewhere else. But I think he'll stick, but I don't know. I wouldn't bet on it because it's a pretty low percentage to me, but it's certainly possible. And I'm really curious because this is going to be I think he is the most interesting Rule 5 case of all time at this point in my life.
See, I think it's going to be easy. That their bullpen wasn't the strongest to begin with. And his fast, I mean, he had a mix that should have been a quick moving college guy. Again, it's been a while, but I think it's relatively easy to stash him as like an eighth guy. It just, when you're running that team and you don't have great bullpen depth to begin with. But I think, the great point you made there is the secondary point, which they can always flip him.
Yeah. And some team who isn't a contender can easily take him on, and it's easier for them to stash him for sure. So that'll be fun. That's all I got, Jeff. Anything for you?
Subscribe, rate and review, tell a friend, watch, this video 6 times today, wherever you're watching on a loop. All those things can help. But no, in all actuality, thank you all for the part you're doing. As we're getting closer to baseball, numbers are going back up again, and we appreciate that. So just want to take a moment and say thank you. And to go back and again say, if you're in Arizona, go to the Jim Pool event. He was an important part of those 90s teams, and it is a very good cause. Thank you all for being part of the Locked On Guardians team, and go Guardians, go to the Jim Pool event.